Good morning. It's time for our daily lectionary reading for Sunday, August 29th. Today is a hymn sing, fifth Sunday. We do a hymn sing, so there's not going to be a sermon. So not one of these is going to be the sermon text. Now, I know I've explained this before, but just in case you've never watched one of these before, the Sunday lectionary readings have typically there's two. They gave you some choices. And this most often since we've been doing this, is there's a choice of two Old Testament readings. There are two streams here. One is a semi-continuous, which is telling the story of something, and the other one is thematic. Now, we've been doing the semi-continuous, which is why we've gone through Saul to David to Solomon, because we're following that semi-continuous thread rather than the thematic thread. Since they're short this Sunday, all the Old Testament readings, I'm going to read all of them. So here's the difference. Normally, we would have the Song of Solomon, 2 verses 8 to 13, and Psalm 45, 1 to 2, and then 6 to 9. Or Deuteronomy 4, 1 to 2, and then 6 to 9, and then Psalm 15. And then we have on Sundays, we have a New Testament reading as well as an epistle. So our epistle is James 1, 17 to 27, and our New Testament is Mark 7, and we're going to do 1 to 8, 14 to 15, 21 to 23. A lot of jumping around, and we'll look at that later. Well, I'll try. All right, so we are August 29th. Start with Song of Solomon. The voice of my beloved, look, he comes leaping upon the mountains, bounding over the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. Look, there he stands behind our wall, gazing in at the windows, looking through the lattice. My beloved speaks and says to me, arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. For now the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth, the time of singing has come, and the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. The fig tree puts forth its figs, and the vines are in blossom. They give forth fragrance. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. And then the psalm that goes with that passage, 45. My heart overflows with a goodly theme. I address my verses to the king. My tongue is like the pen of a ready scribe. You are the most handsome of men. Grace is poured upon your lips. Therefore, God has blessed you forever. Your throne, O God, endures forever and ever. Your royal scepter is a scepter of equity. You love righteousness and hate wickedness. Therefore, God, your God, has anointed you with oil of gladness beyond your companions. Your robes are all fragrant with myrrh and aloes and cassia. From ivory palaces, stringed instruments make you glad. Daughters of kings are among your ladies of honor. At your right hand stands the queen in gold of Ophir. Now, the other strand, the other thread, the thematic, not the semi-continuous, that one is Deuteronomy and Psalm 15. So let's go ahead and read those since they're relatively short today. And you're not getting a sermon from me if you come to church or online. So now, Israel, give heed to the statutes and ordinances that I am teaching you to observe, so that you may live to enter and occupy the land that the Lord, the God of your ancestors, is giving you. You must neither add anything to what I command you, nor take anything from it, but keep the commandments of the Lord your God with which I am charging you. It's not going to work. Sorry, moving my screen. You must observe them diligently, for this will show your wisdom and discernment to the peoples, who, when they hear all these statutes, will say, surely this great nation is a wise and discerning people. For what other great nation has a God so near to it as the Lord our God is whenever we call to him? And what other great nations has statutes and ordinances as this entire law that I'm setting before you today? But take care and watch yourselves closely, so that neither to forget the things that your eyes have seen, nor to let them slip from your mind all the days of your life. Make them known to your children and your children's children. And Psalm 15 is what goes with that one. O Lord, who may abide in your tent? Who may dwell on your holy hill? Those who walk blamelessly and do what is right and speak the truth from their heart, who do not slander with their tongue and do no evil to their friends, nor take up a reproach against their neighbors, in whose eyes the wicked are despised, but who honor those who fear the Lord, who stand by their oath even to their hurt, who do not lend money at interest and do not take a bribe against the innocent. Those who do these things shall never be moved. All right, our epistle, James 1, 17 to 27. Every generous act of giving with every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. In fulfillment of his own purpose, he gave us birth by the word of the truth, so that we would become kinds of first fruits of his creatures. You must understand this, my beloved. Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger, for your anger does not produce God's righteousness. Therefore, rid yourselves of all sordidness and rank growth of wickedness, and welcome with meekness the implanted word that has the power to save your souls. But be doers of the word and not merely hearers who deceive themselves. For if any are hearers of the word and not doers, they are like those who look at themselves in a mirror. For they look at themselves and, on going away, immediately forget what they were like. But those who look into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and persevere, being not hearers who forget, but doers who act, they will be blessed in their doing. And if any think they are religious and do not bridle their tongues, but deceive their hearts, their religion is worthless. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to care for orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. James ain't pulling no punches, is he? I like James. James is attributed to James, the brother of Jesus. It is written to the early church's community, along with Hebrews. It's more of a sermon as it is a letter. So it's very instructive. But it really gives us great insight into the early church. What did they do? They have the teachings of Jesus, and how did they live those out in the next generation, and that next 30, 40 years after the death of Christ? How did that creation of the birth of the early church, what did that look like? How did they live out those teachings? Acts shows us the birth of the church, the very beginning, but it doesn't really, we don't get as much of that, how they applied it in Acts. We really get that in the epistles. Now, you always remember when we're reading the epistles, we are reading someone else's mail. So we have to keep it, there's really context is really, really, really important. All the epistles. Because they were typically not written generally, they were written specifically. They were not written to be universally applied. Those lessons that they talk about are very, very specific to that particular group of people. They are descriptive, not prescriptive. Does that make sense? They're describing a problem and the recommended solution, whether it's from James or Paul or Peter. They are addressing this church has this issue, and here's how they think this church should fix this issue. It is not everyone needs to apply. This applies to everyone, and this is the fix for everyone. It's not the way it works. All right, enough on that. Let's go to Mark 7. I waved my arms so much, my watch thought I was walking. Mark 7. Now, when the Pharisees and some of the scribes who had come from Jerusalem gathered around him, they noticed that some of his disciples were eating with defiled hands, that is, without washing them. For the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they thoroughly wash their hands, thus observing the tradition of the elders. And they do not eat anything from the market unless they wash it. And there are also many other traditions that they observe, the washing of cups, pots, and bronze kettles. So the Pharisees and the scribes asked him, "Why do your disciples not live according to the traditions of the elders, but eat with defiled hands?" And he said to them, "Isaiah prophesied rightly about you hypocrites, as it is written, 'This people honors me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. In vain do they worship me, teaching human precepts as doctrines. You abandon the commandment of God and hold to human tradition.'" And then he called the crowd again and said to them, "Listen to me, all of you, and understand. There's nothing outside a person that by going in can defile, but the things that come out are what defile. For it is from within, from the human heart, that evil intentions come: fornication, theft, murder, adultery, avarice, wickedness, deceit, licentiousness, envy, slander, pride, folly. All these evil things come from within, and they defile a person." Now, you may have noticed that we jump around a little bit here. We go from verse 8 to 14 and then 15 to 21. So what in the world are we jumping for? Let's take a quick look. I have to read. So if you listen to my sermon the other day about tradition, sorry, I actually I read a passage from Fiddler on the Roof, and that's where that song, if you haven't seen Fiddler, you should watch it. If nothing else, from that opening bit about tradition, it's worth it just for that. But if you watch that sermon, if you listen to that sermon, I covered this part. The part they're skipping, this first chunk, is about Korban, where you could will your stuff to God when you die, and then you can then you can say, "Mom and Dad, I can't help you. That's God's money, not mine, because I left it to God." That's the first jump from 8 to 14. But what's 15 to 21? Let's take a look at that. Okay, that is, don't you love just sitting and watching me reading silently? That is where he talks to the disciples about what goes in the files. Because it leaves off saying there's nothing outside a person that by going in can defile, but the things that come out are what defile. And then it jumps to where he had left the crowd and went to the house. The disciples asked him about it, and they said, "What, do you still not understand?" Where he talks about basically Mark is declaring, it says Jesus is declaring all food clean, because he's saying it doesn't matter what you eat, because that just goes out into the sewer. It's what's in your heart. Right? And that's what we missed. And that's our daily lectionary reading for Sunday, the 29th. See ya.